Hi, everyone. I'm Allison. Thanks for joining me for Where I'm From 75 with Theo. She will be joining me any moment. What are you reading? What is exciting that you're reading? I'm trying to invite her. One. I hope I'm saying his name right. I tried to look it up. I didn't get there in time to do it, so I usually am really good about that. But this book, he is he's indigenous from Guam, and he's a human rights lawyer, and it really is a beautiful book and so inspiring about how what each of us does in our lives every day does matter, and that there's no action that's too small that to make a difference. And I think it's an important reminder from someone who has literally devoted their life to making a difference to the people of Guam, that okay, you don't need to be a human rights lawyer to make a difference. So I thought it was a
Hi
beautiful book. Hi,
there.
Theo.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, great.
Yes, I can.
Yes,
Can you hear me
I
okay?
just figured out how to get on
Okay.
here. Thank you.
You did a good job. This was very
Well,
low
good.
hassle. And I also want to recommend Theo's book,
Thank you.
Writing is My Drink, um, because I love it, and it's such a encouraging writing book. It makes it very accessible for people, and it's funny, and it's just like an enjoyable read, and it didn't make me feel like guilty.
Well, that is really a very strong recommendation. If you don't feel horrible when you read a book, that's the book
Mhm.
to read.
Especially like
Right.
a writing book, because sometimes I read writing books and I feel like, oh yeah, I should do
I
all of
actually
that. I'm
think
not going to.
that was part of my impetus for writing the book because when I first started taking writing classes decades and decades ago, really the only writing advice that seemed to exist came from Ernest Hemingway, and it was write every day. And it was, I just always felt
Hmm.
like there was something horribly wrong with me because I wasn't consistent or disciplined. And then, as I started to realize like there's something horribly wrong with all of us, like if there's something wrong with me, I'm not alone. Then I wanted other people to feel like a sense of comfort when they read it, that there was a way to write and create that didn't involve working every day on the writing.
Yes, I felt that strongly.
And
You're breaking up a little. Am I breaking up
yes,
for you? I don't
and
know if you're in. Is this your best
this
spot?
is my best spot. There's a couple
Okay.
things I can do that might help. One is,
Okay. Oh, now I can't hear you. I think you muted yourself. Maybe. Now I can't. You're frozen. Oh,
a,
you're back.
let's see if it gets better. The other thing, I wonder if it's the AirPods. Like, do you think it works better if I'm not using them? Okay.
I don't know. I mean, you can try it. I don't. This shouldn't be a problem. I just don't have AirPods. That's why I use these. But I do want to hear your poem as well as I possibly can, and I do want to say that your book did that for me, and I feel like it's there if I need inspiration. Which I love it when a writing book is like, I'm here. I'm here if you need me. I will give you things to write about. I will give you support. You don't need to
Yes.
do it all right now
No,
in
no, you
order
can
to be a
be
writer.
chipping
Um,
away.
and I agree with you. I think that writing every day thing, the more that time we have away from Hemingway, the more it
Yeah.
becomes, and that's Stephen King's writing advice too, which is a writing book that I read, and it's very unrealistic
I mean, one
for
of the
many of
things that
us.
comes out in Hemingway's truly terrific book, The Movable Feast, about living in Paris, is that his wife, I believe he was married to Hedley then, she made him lunch every day. And she did, like, I'm like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that would help towards, I still don't think I could do it. I think even if I had lunch every day, that wouldn't, it still wouldn't help, but it wouldn't get me to do it every day. But I think it is something to consider. And then also,
Mm-hmm.
there's also being neuroatypical, which I am. And so
Mm-hmm.
I definitely work in big spurts and I'm either on or I'm off. And like lots of people are like that. Like lots of people don't just sort of buckle down
Mm-hmm.
and do it. By the way, is the connection better? Because I found out what the problem was, I think.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
okay.
great. It just went out for a
Okay.
second, but otherwise it's been better.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
But I could talk about bad writing advice all day, but I shouldn't say bad. I guess it felt bad to me at the time because I was already dealing with my own imposter syndrome. So then I would go around and find advice that fed that
I think it
feeling.
is actually
So it
bad
felt bad.
advice if it's
Um,
ex
and I've gotten much
excluding
better.
people. Like I think if writing advice is
That's why I think it's bad too.
because then you tend to think like, oh, it's something wrong with me that I can't do this. Whereas, more inclusive advice makes
Yeah.
people, they feel seen and supported and therefore encouraged and therefore probably more able to do the writing.
Yes, I agree. There is something very
Hmm.
gatekeepery about Write Every Day. That you have a life that can, you know,
And
bend to that kind
to
of
that
requirement.
end, I did my most of my writing of the two books that got published, and well, all of the writing of those two books, and most of the writing of my career while I was a single parent with young children. So I absolutely did not write every day, and I had a lot of limitations on my ability to write. And that was important for me to have, in the book is this sort of feeling of, you could have a life where you're very overwhelmed by demands and still carve out space here and there for your writing.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was just having that conversation with a mom friend. We both feel like it took us a while after having kids to figure out what our creative life looked
Yeah,
like now because we were trying to force an old paradigm on a new on a new way of life. And it took us time to realize, oh, that's not ever
right.
happening. We're not gonna like for me before I had children, I might stay up, all night writing. I'm not gonna do that now because I'm gonna
Right,
pay for it.
right.
Like that's not my life anymore. So it's just interesting. It is a huge life shift, and I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, don't let it change you," but I think for me anyway, it changed me
Yeah,
whether I wanted it to or not. So then it's like get
a
with
writer
what the
I
change
know
is.
who she was actually my thesis advisor when I went to grad school for creative writing. She had 10 years where she barely wrote, and she had written a couple books before that 10 years of having young kids, and then she came back to it, and now she just had another book come out. I mean, I think we have to have other models for looking not only at
Yes.
our writing practice, but our writing careers and how it might how there might be a segments of in our writing career.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Life is
Yeah,
not really like this, but there's a lot of expectations. I think that there is like a very predictable, you know, route, and it's just
right.
steadily
I
going
know,
up,
and
and
we
that's not my
want that. Like we want
experience.
things to just be like improving and getting better. And once I made the decision, then I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's not real.
Mm-hmm. No, no. So anyhow, I would love to
Great.
hear your poem. I just wanted to
Well,
give
thank
you
you
some
so
love for
much.
your
I
book because
super
I loved it.
appreciate it. And I really appreciate being invited to do this activity, which I didn't do any research into what it was when you asked me. And I thought, I'm just going to do it because, sorry, my voice is a bit like, so I'm going to drink a little bit of tea. I think it's like if I get a bit nervous, like my voice will go all froggy. I'm like, oh, okay,
Mm,
worst time. Um,
yeah. Yeah. Because you're constricted. Because it's the
yeah, there's
stress, I
something
think.
about
It makes you go,
live where
"Eh."
it's like, okay, live, but you know, kind of,
I've gotten, like, having done as many, I totally get it. But
you're,
having done as many
you're
now, I'm
so
just like,
used to
whatever.
it.
It's surreal. Well, it's just, it never goes quite
Yeah.
perfectly.
Well, and
So
I
you
think
just let
that
that go.
can add to it. But what I was saying is, I decided, and
Yes.
this is actually a trick that people can use to get more writing out of themselves. I decided that whatever it was, I was going to do it. And whether I liked it or not, I would be creative during that time. And that's why I always tell people sign up for writing classes or writing groups where you're going to have a deadline to exchange work because you will do it. And I don't have a lot of those deadlines right now. So I was like, I will just do this. And whatever it is, it is. And it'll mean like one day I'm going to be sitting and doing some writing. And the surprising part was, because I didn't look into it, was how much fun I had doing it and how much I got out of doing it too. Like I really went to quite a deep place while I was writing it, and it actually kind of helped me, I think, integrate some of the parts of my family heritage that I hadn't thought about much lately, but I think were weighing on me at this point in my life where now both my parents are gone. And so it's like I resist going back there, but it was good to go back.
Yeah, I agree. I think I did one. I think I'm gonna do one once a year. That's sort of my like, and then I'll read it around my birthday. And this year I was intended to really like, I was like, I'm gonna focus on the little sweet like memories. That did not happen.
Right.
It
Right.
was like,
Oh yeah.
nope.
I mean, whatever
No,
those
sorry.
those I always think it's funny when people talk about, why did you choose to write about this? I'm like, choose? There's choosing? I mean, I wish I could choose.
Right.
But it chooses
Hmm.
me. I mean, I'm lucky for whatever shows up.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And especially I think with an exercise like this, because it frees you from the beginning. It frees you from all those sort of constraints that you might put, or I put on myself when I write, like where will I begin, and what age am I,
Well,
and what I didn't have to make any of those
it made me
choices.
wish
It's
like
just
all
fill this
writing
in.
was like Mad Libs. Like I was just filling things in, and that's what I
Me
need. But
too.
I guess this is why writing prompts are popular, right? Because it's like, okay, we're eliminating everything but
Yeah.
this, and this is a very
Hmm.
structured writing prompt, but
Hmm.
it's a very evocative one.
Hmm. I felt the exact same way, Theo. I was like, I could write a whole book if you
Yeah,
could
like
just
every
point me to
chapter was just like,
the 100
had these
prompts.
spaces,
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
a noun, a sensory
Yeah.
detail, like it would be like quite fabulous.
I actually thought, like, I wonder if you could do some. I actually thought, because I do like non-traditional like writing things. It's like, could you
I think
do a whole
you
book that's like
could.
a prompt? Like, how much could you do? Yeah, how much could you? Because it couldn't be like 300 pages, but like, what would you do, and how would you? I thought it was an interesting idea,
Yeah,
not one I can take on right this second. But I was like, oh, I
yeah.
think people would be
Every
into it.
chapter starts, I am from and then it just whatever came out in the beginning, then that was the direction it went, or something like that. I could see that being
Mm-hmm.
a very workable thing. There's that one book where it's like, I remember. Do you know it? I don't,
Mm.
I don't remember more about the book, but it's all these things that the writer remembers. I'll look it up and send you the link to it. It's really quite great.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that sounds right up my alley. So please do. But please share your poem. I love that you told us about the process beforehand because I think there's an, as many ways you can write the poem as there are
Yeah,
ways to
great. I'd be
approach it.
happy
So
to.
I liked hearing
Okay,
yours.
I am from
Yes.
I am from a pack of smokes. From Salem, menthols, and 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Trident. I am from the 2 bedroom divorced lady apartment on Fern Avenue. Flat roofed, mid century, modern, possible, the scent of chlorine in the late night air. I am from the ice plant that lines the freeway exits, living on carbon monoxide and Bay Area sunshine. I am from the school of soul custody and women with secret money stashed in good to the last drop Maxwell House cans. I am from Dorothy and Ted. I am from Just You Watch Me and Pour Me Another. From She's Gonna Be a Heartbreaker. And if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. From Alcoholics Anonymous and passports and a stack of cash in the back of the underwear drawer. I'm from Redwood City and God Save the Queen, from a bumblebee sandwich and pickled eggs washed down with cold ale. I'm from the Canadian who lied to immigration, hoping to join a gold rush, and the Californian who picked her up at a bank on the El Camino Real. The pictures of the people you came from curl in boxes in the basement now, packed alongside the matchbooks collected from Irish and tiki bars along the way.
Yay! It was so evocative, and I loved all the like 4 out of 5 dentists recommend, and the Maxwell House, and all those things all took me back to those kind of
Mhm.
jingly things. I don't feel like they live in the same way now that
They were
they
big
did
back
then.
then because, there was 3 TV
Yeah.
stations basically, and ABC, NBC, CBS, and they ran all the same
Mm-hmm.
commercials, and commercials ran for a long time. Like it wasn't like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
we'll run this for a week or two. I mean, it would be like for years. And it's funny how
That's
it
true.
just
Mm-hmm.
is in your head. And that 4 out of 5 dentists, like I mean, my God, I mean that, and you wonder about that research, that your childhood was based on, right? Like, who are these dentists? But it was
Yeah,
so drilled
yeah.
into
It
us,
was,
right? Like 4 out of 5 dentists.
yeah.
But you wonder about that fifth dentist, You've done it all, probably, they're saying.
Yes. And was it literally 5 dentists?
Right. That's right.
You know. Yeah, and the
Mm-hmm.
coffee
The coffee
can,
cans.
and just all of those things, and the
Mm-hmm.
hidden cash, which is not something I've really thought of in a while. And it made me think of
Mm-hmm.
my mom's underwear drawer and the like
Mm-hmm.
very nice soap that was
Lavender,
in. I don't know
maybe?
if you had that, but my mom had like the soap. Hers was some kind of it wasn't lavender. It was
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, powdery. It wasn't like a floral, but it was
Right,
like
because
soap you're
it's
never
so
going to
good.
use. That and that it's just
Right.
in your underwear
I
drawer,
do I
and
do know about that soap.
that
I also know about,
was a lady's
yeah,
underwear drawer.
uh,
Was that?
for sure. Yeah. I mean, the my oh, I would know what I was going to say about the secret money. My mom and my grandmother, when I was really young, like I mean 6, 7 years old, started telling me on a regular basis, a woman always needs to have her own money. A woman always needs to have her own money because you never know. You never know. And I was like, you have no idea what they mean of any of it. Like, own money. What does it even mean? And you never know. Like what? You never, now I know. Now I know what they meant. But it was absolutely drilled into me. You've got to have your own money, and you never know. You never know.
Yeah, it was something that was around me as well. And I mean, money was present. And I grew up in a space where there
Yeah.
was ostensibly plenty of it. And yet it was still very much a tool
Yeah,
to
money is
control.
always, I think,
And
always weird. Like it can never just be normal in a family, right? Like whether, yeah,
I think it's very hard. And I think you have to be so transparent about it. And you have to be really honest about like, this is what matters to me and this is what I spend
yeah,
money on, instead of having it be an objective truth. This is what is important. This is what money is for. It's
right,
personal. You know,
right,
what money is for me is not necessarily what money
right.
is for
It's
someone
values.
else.
I mean,
Um,
past survival, it's values.
yeah,
I mean, there's the big part, certain
yes,
amount of money
yes.
that's just surviving. And then after that, it's values. And I grew up in an era with a lot of secrecy around money, where it's like you weren't even supposed to ask anything about it. Um, so that that made for sentences like you never know, and other things that are just not talked about, not fleshed out.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, but there was money around, and I feel like wealthy people in particular don't like to talk about money, um, because they don't want to admit they have
Right,
it, and
the
other people
guilt of
don't.
it.
Like there's just
Yeah,
basic discomfort with that. Yeah, yeah, and so it's like, well, we don't have
right,
that much.
right.
What's that much? What's a lot? What's those sorts of, um, yeah, nobody. I just know that my dad grew up poor, and then we had, so for him it was like he
Yeah,
he succeeded in life. The rest of life was like very much secondary and tertiary. Like he he wasn't
yeah.
just surviving anymore.
Well,
So
and I think when people outstrip what they came from in their earnings, that's always like a special weirdness in terms of how issues
mhm.
get triggered. And so, yeah, um, my mom was really poor for quite a while, because she became a mom for the first time at 19, and she was married, but then her then husband left, and then she was a single mom, and then later she got divorced again. And so it took her a long time to like let go of a kind of survival mentality, even when she was no longer in that. And so that was like, a, I think that that's not uncommon with parents that knew even some of the depression, because she was also around for the depression because she was born in 1927.
My dad
Oh,
too,
also 19,
and I definitely think
yeah.
it leaves a mark on
Oh,
you.
definitely. Like, yeah.
No, he was born in
Oh, yeah.
31,
No,
but it's still like,
it's early enough to have felt it, right? Because he would have been born right into it. So there's all the fear. I remember whenever we'd go to like
mhm.
a fast food restaurant, my mom would always like grab packets of ketchup and stuff and put them in her purse and take them home, that we would use those for the ketchup. Even though, like at the time, like that wasn't needed. It was just like that was her mentality, like, oh, well, we paid here and we can bring home. And, I was mortified. I was like, hey, what are we doing? Like, let's not be doing that.
Hotel
Oh, going
towels was
home.
a big one.
Oh, wow.
No, the hotel
Oh,
towels,
wow.
like taking the hotel towels because they're
Right.
free towels. Um, and for a very long time growing up in like the nice bathroom, we had these
Right.
S towels. And Shelton is not my name I was born with. So there were no S's in our family, not
Oh,
our last
right.
name, not our first name, not our, I couldn't, and I just thought they were really lovely towels because they had an S and like some, stuff around,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
were from the
I know
Sheridan.
that S,
Um,
that Sheraton S. I pictured it right away. Yeah. Right.
and those were the best towels we
Fancy.
had, and it was just like, yeah, and there was no shame in them. There was no
Right.
like,
I mean,
hey, we
it's
stole these
crazy.
towels. Like these are the
Yeah.
best towels we got. Yeah, we could afford towels.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
like we could afford towels. My dad was at the Sheridan, so it's just this strange. My dad was definitely of the, like, if it's not nailed down,
Like
then
it's
it is
coming home.
available
Towels are, I have to say,
variety.
towels are
Yeah.
so interesting because where my, like, a lot of kids in the neighborhood that I lived in for part of my childhood in Canada, which we moved to after I was 10, had British heritage, as I do, and they all had these threadbare, like just horrible towels, like towels where it's like, my God, like you were on your last legs and you strings hanging. And I remember going to this girl's house, and her family was Italian, and they had this just plush, beautiful, fresh towels. And I was like, what? Like, how rich are they that they get, these towels, right? Like, but then, later you grow up and you're
Yeah.
like, wow, towels aren't that much. Like, you can just buy towels, but I still have trouble with buying towels. Like, I'm like, just buy towels. Like, just, yeah,
So do I.
like,
Yeah. And those Sheridan towels got threadbare and changed colors. I think they were initially not white, but then eventually, after so many washes, they are almost white. Um, yeah,
right.
but you're like, well, it does the job. Like it gets the water off. So it's interesting. I mean, that's yeah. I just was thinking about the towels the other day and how I was so like
Right.
charmed by them. And it took me years to realize that they weren't attached to us in
Right.
any way.
That
We
is
were no
so
S. There was no
funny.
S.
Like
These are not ours.
breaking the code of what
Yeah.
S is.
Yeah. And yeah. And anyway, there's so much. That's what I love about this poem. And I think it really has informed my writing. I've gotten so much better at kind of digging out those little details and also finding
Right,
the worth in
right.
them,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, there's that one line where it was like sensory detail here, and I was like, sensory detail? No, because like I just like never hadn't even thought about like the senses. And then I was like, okay, yes, it smelled like chlorine, right? But it does sort of push your writing to have, be better because you're forced to include these
Mm-hmm.
specifics, including sensory details. And
I had the same response, Theo, especially with anything that was smell. I was like, oh God, because that's the one I can't. That's like my
right. Yeah, I
block,
mean, I tend to
smells.
be just like a brain with that, that is in this like case called a human body. And I know so many writing teachers are like, get into your five senses. And I always,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, oh, that's right. I should tell them to use their senses. But when I do feel like a phony because I'm like, oh, yeah, what are senses? What have I experienced through the senses? But it
Mm-hmm.
does smell and sound, they do add so much, right?
They do, and they transport obviously the listener, but they also transport me as a writer. Like, oh right, that thing that I sort of
Right.
just took for
And
granted.
also, especially
You
if you're
know,
thinking about when
this.
you were younger, we did have senses back then, right? Like a kid does experience life through the senses. And I definitely remember the smell of pools because I loved swimming and, just,
Oh, they and it was so
oh, that's
strong
what
back
it
then.
was.
Like you saying chlorine, I am just like
Eye burning.
there
Like
with
you stand
that
by the
smell
edge of
that's
the
just
pool
like,
and your
ugh.
eyes are
Yeah.
burning because the chlorine is so strong.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
no germs.
Yeah,
That's such a good
I
point.
went temporarily blind from one of those pools. I I keep trying to work that into. It hasn't shown up yet anywhere in my writing, but yeah, I went in one of those pools with a girl I barely knew, and I opened my eyes, and
Well,
then I
and
couldn't see
I
anything
actually thought
for
I was
like a
allergic
day.
to chlorine at one point because I had this like rash. But then,
No, it's just
but I
toxic.
still, I've never kind of really checked that out as a grown up, like as vaguely in the back of my mind, like I haven't had those chlorine problems. But it was because
Mm-hmm.
we were probably just swimming in bleach, you know, like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, and they would say things like, "Oh, just wait 20 minutes or wait," not like a long
Right after
time.
they
And
had done
there was
their
just
thing
no,
at the pool.
there was very little
Right. But we were
supervision.
always just like, I want to get in there. Like, I cannot wait. Right. And it's like, go
Yeah.
ahead. I mean, everything that was
Yeah. And
chemical back
it
then
was for
was
us, it was,
just, yeah, it's fine. I mean, you're drinking carnation instant breakfast
mhm.
for in the morning, right? And you're living in like a cloud of adult cigarette smoke. So, and drinking like Dr. Pepper and stuff. So, yes, you can jump in the pool anytime, whenever you're ready. Yeah,
the cigarette smoke too. Because now when I smell a cigarette, I'm like,
right.
someone's
But
smoking a
back then,
cigarette?
no, I,
Where?
the amount of every adult in my world growing up smoked. Like I was like, there's no way I could have grown up and not smoked for at least a while because it was
Mm-hmm.
so much a part of a rite of passage. Like I literally couldn't wait to be old enough to smoke. Like I just thought it was the coolest. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I started with I am a pack of smokes because I was like, that's the first image that came to mind is my mom's Salem menthols, like everywhere, always.
And the
Huge
big
ashtray.
ashtray full of
And let it fill up.
ashes.
I used to, at one point, I remember as a
Yeah.
joke, like crawling on the ground to be under the blue cloud because so many people were smoking in our place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy. But, I just was like breathing in secondhand smoke all the time, which is, well, and parents smoked in
Mm-hmm.
cars with their babies. Like, there's your baby, and you're in the car with your like windows rolled up, and you're smoking as you drive without a seatbelt on.
Yeah. Yeah. Was
It
it
was a
it
different
was a
time.
different time. It really was. Yeah. So, any other last thoughts before we wrap up? This has been
No,
very fun for me.
I
I
guess
love,
that just
I
that
just
I feel
always love
like now I'm going
it.
to be like proselytizing about the poem and, telling people you have to do this and sending them to your page and
Yeah.
say, check this out because it's such a good thing.
Yeah, and they should reach out. I'm happy to have them join me. And a friend actually reached out. She used it with
Yeah.
a yoga group she was leading. And I was like, great. Like it's just it's a really it can be just an enjoyable way also to get to know
That
people
is
you
a
don't
good
know. Like
point. It
not
could
only
be like an
yourself, but other
icebreaker,
people.
right? That I never
Yeah.
thought of
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
it would be a great thing to do at the beginning of a writing class because then people would open up a
Yeah.
bit about themselves. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for inviting me. I
Yes.
had so much fun doing it. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Great.
thanks for joining me. Well, I'm
All
so glad
right.
you enjoyed it.
Bye,
Thank you.
Allison.